Hey, well, I guess y'all have done it. Everybody's been talking about this coronavirus, and a lot of y'all are doing things that you never thought you would do, and that is you're homeschooling your kids. And a lot of you are having to teach math. Yeah, you're having to teach math. You know that stuff you used to say, I'll never use this again. Well, guess what? You're using it again. And so, by request, I guess I'm going to have to come out of retirement. After 40 years in the classroom, I thought I was retired, but I'm going to have to break it back out, and we're going to look at something that I used to call mad math moments. And we're going to look at this from a common sense math approach, not a common core, a common sense math approach. Now, being as you're going to have to teach math, some of you may not be prepared or feel like you're not prepared. So I'm going to start off with a lesson that I used to give my kids every year, the first day of class. Are you able to do this stuff? If not, we need to change your schedule. Some of y'all need to go back to work. But no, hold on a minute. I feel like everybody is able to do math. So here we go. I'm going to start with what I call the 4 hardest problems. Parents, if you're able to complete these 4 problems, then you should be able to teach your child math. Now, in math, we always deal with 4 major operations. Now, I'm not talking about kidney stones. I'm not talking about heart disease, any of that. I'm talking about the 4 major operations of math, which are adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So, through my 40 years of teaching in a classroom, I discovered that these are either the 4 hardest problems possible or the 4 hardest problems I can think of. So we're going to look at that. So I'm going to give you the hardest addition problem, the hardest subtraction problem, the hardest multiplication problem, and one of the hardest division problems that I can think of. So all I want you to do, parents, is promise me that you will try your best. That's what counts, is effort. Effort goes a long way in teaching math and being able to do math. I've heard people say, I just can't do math. I just can't do math. Well, we're going to find out which ones of you can, or which ones of you need to hire a neighbor or something to homeschool your kids during this coronavirus social distancing thing that hopefully you're all doing. Because if you do your part, we can make this thing go away and you can get your kids back to the teachers that really are trained to do this. So here we go. The 4 hardest problems. You ready? Got a piece of paper? Got something to write them down with? Let's look at them and see what they are. Okay, here we go. Write them down. Try to work them. Wait a minute. I didn't say start laughing. I didn't say start giggling. I used to do the same thing with 7th graders, and I'd hear a lot of snickering going on when I put them up. And I turned around and I said, what's the matter? They said, you said they were going to be hard. No, it's your perception again. I never said these were going to be hard. I said these are the hardest that I have ever seen. Now, let me stop and explain. First, let's take addition. 9 plus 9, the hardest math problem in the world. Hardest addition problem, I should have said, in the world. Now you say, no, I think of things a lot harder than that. Let's see, you were expecting something like probably, where is it? You were thinking something like this maybe, right? Yeah, that's a lot harder than this one that I gave you. But I want to back up a second. How many numbers can you add at a time? Just think about it. How many numbers can you add at a time? If your answer is 2, you're correct. You can only add 2 numbers at a time. So, if you can only add 2 numbers at a time, what's the biggest single digit that there is? Biggest single digit. 9. So, 9 plus 9 are the 2 biggest numbers you will ever have to add. So let's think about that a second. Of course, if we add 9 plus 9, now if you've got elementary kids, this may not work, but this will work with about any grade once they learn their addition facts. So 9 plus 9, you add 9 and 9, you get 18. But they can't go right here in one spot. The 8 goes here. The 1's got to go over here. In math, we use a place value system. Every place in a number has a certain value. We'll talk more about that in another lesson later on. But right now, we're just talking about the 4 hardest problems to see if you're able to do this. So, here we go. Let's look at this problem that y'all thought was a lot harder. Again, how do you work this problem? Well, most of you start right over here and you go straight down the line. Well, if you're doing that, you're going to add 4 plus 2. That's 6. Then you're going to add 6 plus 5. That's 11. Well, now you got 11 plus 0, Bob. That's bigger than the 9 plus 9. But again, you can only take things in their place. So 1 plus 0 is 1. And then that other one comes on down. So it's actually over here in this place. And so again, you're only adding 2 numbers at a time. You go through that whole thing, and that's the way you will work it, is just by adding 2 numbers at a time. 11 plus 4 is 15. We've got our 1 over here. 1 plus 6 is 7. 7 plus 2 is 12. The 2 plus 3 is 15. The 2 plus 3 is 5, I'm sorry. The 5 plus 5 is 20, 21. We put the 1 down, we carry our 2 over. You're never going to add more than 9 plus 9. What we have to work on is not the ability to do the addition, it's the mechanics behind it. So, hopefully I've convinced you. 9 plus 9, the hardest addition problem in the world. Now, let's tackle the hardest one of all of this. And that is 18 minus 9. I still think subtraction is the hardest because we're taking away. But if you think about subtraction as being the opposite of addition, addition just means we're putting things together. Subtraction means we're taking it away. I like the old thing that we used to do when I was in school, and we called it take away. Okay? Well, if it gets any bigger than that, such as this problem, well, you still only do 2 at a time. 6 minus 4. Take 6. You got counters, you got digits, you got something you can work with. Use your fingers. There's nothing wrong with using your fingers. 6 minus 4 is 2. Then you've got 3 minus 8. I can't take 3 away from 8. If you got 3 cookies, I can't take 8 cookies away from you. I don't care how big and bad I am. If you ain't got them, I can't take them away from you. That works the same way. Let's go back up here to this one. See, 18 minus 9. 8 minus 9. I can't take 9 away from 8. So, what do I have to do? Well, we have to regroup. We have to rename. We have to borrow. Heck, in Mississippi where I grew up, we called it borrowing. You got to borrow sometimes. So if you borrow, you're only going to borrow 1. You're going to borrow 1. You're going to rename it. You're going to borrow from the tens. You're going to make this 18 ones. So if you got 18 minus 9, that is 9 once you've learned your math facts a little bit. Like I said, not big ones, just little ones. We only go to a little at a time. So let's go back to this problem. Down here we had 3 minus 8. Can't do 3 minus 8. Can't take 8 away from 3. You're not big enough. You're not bad enough. So what we've got to do is we got to regroup, rename, borrow, whatever you want to call it. You only borrow 1, though. That's the most you will ever borrow. But if I borrow 1 from 7, that makes it 6. So let's write that in there. Now, we got 13 minus 8. 13 minus 8. You can use your fingers. You can count 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 5. So I've got 5 right here. Then let's go back here. 6 minus 2 is 4. But again, I never borrowed anything bigger. I never subtracted anything bigger than 18 minus 9. So you start to understand. These are actually the hardest subtraction problem you'll ever run into. Yes, you got to master the mechanics of how to regroup, how to rename, how to borrow, but that's what it amounts to. So now let's go to multiplication. Man, I can remember fits of people trying to learn their multiplication tables. I hate to break it to you, but there's no easy way to do multiplication. You've just got to memorize your facts. You've got to practice, and learn your times tables. I used to tell my pre-algebra students that the difference in a pre-algebra student and a regular math student, someone that was better at math, someone that wasn't better at math, was the simple fact that they learned their times tables back in 3rd, 4th, 2nd, whatever grade your state takes it in. That's the easiest thing to do, is learning those facts. I mean, not the easiest, but that is the most basic thing that you have to do. That separated always the difference in my advanced students and my regular students. Now, don't get me wrong, by the end of the year, most regular students could catch up with the advanced students. It's just that they had never sat down and learned that. So if you don't do anything else with your kids, practice your times tables. Now, only practice through the 9s though. Again, you can only multiply 2 numbers at a time. I don't care if you have something like 283 times 476. Okay. If you got something like that, you're still going to multiply 1 number at a time. Again, it gets into the mechanics. You're going to multiply the 6 times the 3. You're going to multiply the 6 times the 8. You're going to multiply the 6 times the 2. You're going to multiply the 7 times the 3, 7 times the 8, 7 times the 2, 4 times the 3, 4 times the 8, 4 times the 2. Now, we'll talk about mechanics and how all that works a little bit later on in another lesson. But right now, I'm just trying to convince you that you can do this, because you never multiply anything bigger than 9 times 9. Now, how many of you in elementary school had to learn like your 11s tables or your 12s tables? I know both my kids did, and my daughter, it happened to be that she was sick and missed a week of school when they were doing their 7s tables. And she had trouble with like 7 times 8. She knew her 6 tables, so she was fine up through 6s. But when it got to like 7 times 8, she was having trouble with them. So I went to the teacher after she got back, and I says, "What are y'all doing teaching the 11s tables and the 12s tables?" And the teacher told me, "Because they're going to need it." And I said, "When? When are they going to need it?" And they said, "When they get to junior high." And I said, "I am junior high, And I don't know my 11s and 12s tables. I couldn't tell you 12 times 8 without having to do a little work. Now, that doesn't mean I can't work it, because anybody can do something like this. See, I certainly never learned my 476 tables or my 283s tables, so I don't know this at all. But with mechanics, you can multiply it. You can work it out. So now, let's go to the last one, division. Or as Jethro used to say, gazintas. Okay, we got to worry about dividing something. How much can something go into something? So let me find a sheet of paper here, and let's work on that a second. Okay, if we look at a problem like 89 divided by 9, first off, we've got to turn it around into something like this. Now, if it gets any bigger, it actually gets easier. Okay, but again, if you've learned your times tables, if you've worked on the 1s through 9s, don't worry about those 11s and 12s, and 10s are simple. You just put a 0 at the end of it. So 9 goes into 89. Well, 9 won't go into 8. 9 will go into 89. So my answer's got to go here. That's the biggest thing you have to figure out, where your answer's going to go. Now, how many times will 9 go into 89? Well, if it gets bigger, it gets easier. So 9 goes into 89 9 times. 9 times 9 is 81 after we've learned our times tables. Then we have to do that hardest one, which is subtract. 9 minus 1 is 8. So we have 9 with a remainder of 8. Most people never learned to do long division. That's just what I found through all my years of teaching 7th graders. Most 7th graders can't divide, but they can know their times tables, 9 through 9. And if you do that, then that gets a little easier. I don't care how big the problem gets. Let's say we've got something like this. Okay, let's say we got 27 into 4,862, or even this, 521 into 74,698. Let's look at it a second. 27 into 4,862. Remember what we just talked about? 27 won't go into 4 because it's not bigger than 4. I mean, it's bigger than 4. 27 will go into 48 because it's smaller than 48. So my answer is going to go over the 8. Now, all we're going to do is we're going to kind of guesstimate. Now, guesstimate doesn't mean just rear back and pick out an answer. It sort of means to estimate an answer. And we're going to do that by rounding off. Let's see. 27 is closer to 20 or 30. Yep, it's closer to 30. So let's just take that. Let's take nothing but the 3. 3 will go into 4 one time. But we know our answer goes here. So we're going to put a 1 right there. Well, that's easy because 1 times 27 is, of course, 27. Now we subtract again. 8 minus 7 is 1. 4 minus 2 is 2. See, we don't have to do any of that borrowing or anything on that. Now, always double check. Make sure 21 is smaller than 27. It is. So we bring down our 6. And then we keep going. 27, remember, we're not doing 27s. I don't know my 27s tables. I do know my 3s tables. 3 goes into 21 7 times. That goes right over the 6, the next number. So then we multiply. 7 times 7, 49. 7 times, we carry that 4 over. 7 times 2, 14. And 4, 18. Then we subtract. 6 minus 9. Uh-oh, we got to borrow. But remember, we only borrow 1. That makes that 16. That if I borrow 1 from 1, it's 0. 16 minus 9 is 7. 0 minus 8. Can't take 8 from nothing. So I borrow again. Makes that a 1. That becomes a 10. 10 minus 8. That's 2. 1 minus 1, 0. I have 17, remainder of 27. Wait a minute. My remainder can't be bigger. Or can't be the same size as that. It's got to be smaller. So we got to bump that up to an 18. So now if I go back and redo this and I multiply 8 times 27, you're going to find out that's 216. So I've got no remainder. So I bring my 2 down. 27 won't go into 2. It'll go 0 times with a remainder of 2. So that big number's that. But nowhere in there did I divide anything bigger than 9 into 89. So again, if you can work those 4 basic problems right there, you can teach your kids math. Stay tuned. Join in. I'm going to put some more lessons on here later.